The bunker doors slam shut behind you as distant explosions shake the concrete walls. Somewhere ahead, the most protected man in Germany is waiting, but something already feels terribly wrong. Every soldier you pass avoids eye contact, and the silence feels heavier than the explosions above. If you were standing here, responsible for protecting history's most hunted leader, would you trust anyone around you? Because nobody will tell you what is happening. You rush toward the command room. Therefore, every step reveals faces that look less like soldiers and more like people expecting the end. You finally reach the command room, but the maps on the walls reveal a disaster. Therefore, you realize the city above is being surrounded from every direction. The situation is worse than you imagined, but your duty remains unchanged. Therefore, you move toward Hitler's private quarters to receive new instructions. The door opens, but the man you see is not the powerful figure from the posters. He looks exhausted, and that single image changes everything you expected. Because you expected confidence, his visible exhaustion unsettles you. What would you do if the person everyone depended on suddenly looked uncertain? Another explosion rattles the walls, therefore everyone freezes for a moment. The war no longer feels distant. It feels like it is already inside the bunker. Since the bombardment is getting closer, security around the bunker is increased immediately. But tighter security also means growing suspicion among the people trapped underground. As the night deepens, rumors begin spreading through the bunker faster than official orders. One of those rumors could change everything, but nobody knows if it is true. Because nobody can confirm the rumor, uncertainty spreads through every corridor. Therefore, you begin checking the bunker personally, searching for answers before panic takes control. The deeper you go, the more supplies you see being rationed. Therefore, you realize the people here are preparing for something much longer than a temporary siege. The shortage explains the growing anxiety, but another discovery worries you even more. Many officers are quietly discussing escape routes instead of military plans. Because loyalty is beginning to crack, trust becomes harder to find. Therefore, every conversation now feels like a potential threat. As reports arrive from the surface, the news grows worse by the hour. Could you stay focused on your mission if you knew the world outside was collapsing around you? Because the front lines are moving closer, security patrols are doubled. But the increased protection only reminds everyone how vulnerable the bunker has become. You return to Hitler's quarters expecting new orders. Instead, you find a room filled with maps that no longer match reality. The growing gap between plans and reality unsettles you. Therefore, for the first time, you begin questioning whether any outcome can still change what is coming. Another violent barrage shakes the bunker, but this time it feels much closer. Therefore, everyone immediately realizes the city above is becoming a battlefield street by street. The bombardment leaves many visibly shaken, but nobody leaves their post. The tension becomes unbearable because everyone is waiting for the next piece of bad news. That bad news arrives sooner than expected. Therefore, emergency meetings begin one after another, each ending with fewer signs of hope. Because every meeting ends in disappointment, morale sinks even lower. But despite everything, your responsibility remains exactly the same. Hours pass without rest. Therefore, exhaustion begins affecting everyone underground. Yet the bunker remains awake because nobody believes tomorrow will be easier. Just before dawn, a new message reaches the bunker. Whatever it contains immediately changes the expressions of everyone who reads it. As the message spreads through the bunker, silence replaces conversation. Something decisive has happened outside, and the consequences are racing toward you. The message confirms what many feared but refused to say aloud. Therefore, the last hopes of reversing the war begin disappearing inside the bunker. Because hope is fading, conversations become shorter and colder. People are no longer discussing victory. They are discussing what happens when everything ends. The change in mood is impossible to ignore, but your duties continue. Therefore, you remain close to Hitler's quarters as the pressure around him grows heavier. Each hour brings more reports from the surface, but every report tells the same story. The city is shrinking around the bunker. Because the city above is becoming unreachable, the bunker starts to feel like an island. Could you remain calm knowing every road out is slowly disappearing? The feeling of isolation grows stronger, therefore many people begin thinking about survival rather than loyalty. You can almost feel trust evaporating from the air. A sudden emergency meeting is called, but nobody explains why. Therefore, curiosity and fear spread through the bunker at the same speed. When the meeting ends, the faces leaving the room reveal everything. The situation is even worse than the rumors suggested. Because reality is becoming impossible to deny, the atmosphere changes completely. The bunker no longer feels like a headquarters. It feels like a waiting room for history. Then something unexpected happens. Despite everything collapsing outside, preparations begin for a private ceremony underground. The ceremony feels surreal because explosions continue shaking the city above. Therefore, every moment carries the strange feeling that two different worlds are colliding. As the event concludes, the bunker briefly feels calmer. But that calm only makes the next wave of reality hit even harder. New reports arrive almost immediately, therefore attention returns to the battlefield. The brief distraction is over, and the situation is worse than before. Because the reports leave little room for optimism, many officers stop pretending things can be fixed. For the first time, surrender becomes a word nobody can completely ignore. The possibility of surrender changes everything, but not everyone agrees on what should happen next. Hidden disagreements are about to surface, and the bunker is becoming more dangerous from within than from above. Because disagreements are no longer hidden, the bunker feels divided into invisible camps. Therefore, every conversation now carries the risk of becoming a confrontation. The growing division makes security even more important. Therefore, you begin paying closer attention to the people around you than to the explosions above. As trust continues to erode, rumors evolve into accusations. Nobody knows who can still be relied upon, and that uncertainty spreads faster than fear. Because uncertainty dominates every room, even routine duties feel dangerous. Yet abandoning your post is never an option. A new wave of artillery strikes the city, therefore the bunker shakes harder than ever before. Could you keep your focus knowing the battle is now almost directly overhead? The bombardment eventually fades, but the silence that follows feels even worse. Therefore, everyone waits nervously for the next report from the surface. When the reports arrive, they confirm that the city center is becoming increasingly isolated. Therefore, hopes of any large-scale rescue begin disappearing completely. Because escape routes are vanishing, many people start confronting difficult realities. The future they imagined only weeks ago no longer exists. The emotional strain becomes impossible to ignore, but the machinery of the bunker keeps operating. Therefore, messages, meetings, and security checks continue without pause. Then you notice something changing in Hitler himself. The confidence that once filled every room is being replaced by quiet resignation. Because that change is impossible to miss, it affects everyone around him. Therefore, the bunker begins preparing for possibilities that would have seemed unthinkable before. Days of pressure have transformed the underground complex completely. What began as a command center now feels like the final chapter of a much larger story. Because the end feels closer than ever, people begin reflecting on choices, loyalty, and consequences. The atmosphere becomes strangely quiet despite the war outside. Another critical meeting takes place behind closed doors. Therefore, everyone waits outside knowing that whatever is decided next may shape the final outcome. When the meeting ends, the expressions on the participants' faces answer every question. A final decision has been made, and the bunker is moving toward a moment from which there is no return. Because a final decision has been made, the mood inside the bunker changes immediately. Therefore, every action now feels less like preparation and more like the completion of an unavoidable process. The silence becomes almost unsettling, but it reveals something important. Everyone seems to understand what is coming, even if nobody says it aloud. Because certainty has replaced speculation, the frantic energy of previous days disappears. Therefore, the bunker enters a strange state of calm before the final storm. Outside, the battle continues relentlessly, but underground the atmosphere feels detached from time. The world above is collapsing while the bunker waits for its own conclusion. As you continue your duties, a realization begins to settle in. Could you carry out your responsibility knowing that nothing you do can change the outcome anymore? Because the outcome feels inevitable, many people begin focusing on personal decisions. Therefore, the bunker becomes filled with quiet moments of reflection. The reflections reveal something unexpected. Beneath ranks and uniforms, everyone here is confronting the same uncertainty about what comes next. Then a series of final instructions begins circulating through the bunker. Therefore, people move with a sense of purpose that feels very different from before. Because the instructions leave little room for doubt, tension returns immediately. The calm that settled over the bunker starts to fracture. Hours later, you are summoned closer than ever to Hitler's private quarters. Therefore, you realize that the moment everyone has been anticipating is finally approaching. The corridor outside the quarters feels frozen in time. Nobody speaks, and every second seems longer than the last. Because nobody knows exactly when the moment will come. Uncertainty becomes unbearable. Therefore, every sound echoes louder than it should. Then everything changes in an instant. A sequence of events unfolds behind closed doors, and history quietly reaches a turning point. The news spreads rapidly through the bunker, therefore shock replaces anticipation. The moment everyone expected has finally arrived. Because the central figure of the bunker is now gone, everything changes at once. The structure that held this underground world together suddenly feels empty. Because the center of authority has disappeared, confusion spreads through the bunker immediately. Therefore, people begin searching for direction in a place that suddenly feels leaderless. The uncertainty affects everyone differently, but nobody can ignore it. Therefore, the bunker becomes a maze of urgent meetings and unanswered questions. Because decisions can no longer be delayed, new orders begin circulating. Yet every order feels smaller than the events unfolding around it. As the hours pass, the bunker slowly starts emptying. Therefore, the corridors that once felt crowded now seem strangely hollow. The silence grows heavier with every departing group. Could you walk away from a place where so much history had just unfolded around you? Because many people are leaving, security checkpoints begin shutting down. Therefore, the fortress that once seemed impenetrable starts losing its purpose. The transformation is impossible to ignore. What was once the nerve center of a nation now feels like an abandoned shelter beneath a ruined city. Because the bunker is losing its purpose, attention shifts to the world above. For the first time in days, your thoughts move beyond these concrete walls. As you move closer to the surface, the sounds of war become clearer. Therefore, the reality hidden by the bunker finally begins revealing itself. The first glimpse outside changes everything. The city you once knew has been transformed beyond recognition. Because the destruction is so vast, words feel inadequate. Every street tells the story of months of conflict and suffering. The ruins answer questions the bunker never could. Therefore, you finally understand how completely the world around you has changed. Because the war's outcome is now visible everywhere, denial becomes impossible. The reality people resisted underground is standing directly in front of you. For the first time, you are no longer thinking like a bodyguard. You are simply a witness to the end of an era. Because your mission has effectively ended, a different question takes its place. What remains after the role that defined your entire existence suddenly disappears? Because your purpose is gone, every step through the ruined city feels unfamiliar. Therefore, you begin seeing the world not through orders and duty, but through your own eyes. The change is subtle at first, but impossible to ignore. For the first time in years, nobody is telling you where to go next. Because the future is completely unwritten, even simple choices feel enormous. Every road ahead leads into a world that no longer resembles the one you knew. As you continue walking, signs of survival begin appearing among the ruins. Therefore, the city starts feeling less like an ending and more like the beginning of something uncertain. The sight surprises you because life continues despite everything that happened. Could you find hope in a place that had lost so much? Because people are moving forward, your attention shifts away from the past. Therefore, you begin realizing that history never truly stops. It simply changes direction. The realization stays with you as the day continues. The chapter you lived through is ending, but countless new chapters are already beginning around you. Because the world keeps moving, the bunker begins feeling very far away. Its corridors, fears, and secrets already seem like echoes from another lifetime. You remember the uncertainty that filled those underground halls. Therefore, the open sky above you now feels more meaningful than ever before. The contrast between the bunker and the surface reveals something important. No matter how powerful people seem, history is always larger than any one individual. Because you have witnessed both the center of power and its collapse, your understanding has changed forever. The mystery that began behind those bunker doors has finally revealed itself. Looking back, the story was never really about protecting a single man. It was about witnessing the final moments of an entire era from the closest possible position. Because you lived through those final days, you carry memories few people could imagine. The weight of those memories will remain long after the city rebuilds itself. The journey that began with uncertainty now ends with understanding. Some questions were answered, while others belong to history itself. As the sun settles over the city, the noise of war finally feels distant. If you would like to experience another journey through history, follow along for the next adventure. And what story would you choose to witness next?